afternoon, everyone. This is Beth Kitzis, one of the RDs at Community Servings, but today I'm going live from home since we are in the middle of a snowstorm. But it actually works out perfectly for me today because we're going to be making some homemade gifts. So I'm going to be making some nice homemade food gifts that you can give to someone if you want to give them some nice love, maybe something a little bit healthy. So we're going to do two different things today, but I'm also going to talk about some other ideas if you're looking to make some homemade gifts that aren't just like your standard, batch of cookies or something. If you really want to give something a little more hearty or a little bit more meaningful, or if you have a lot of gifts to give and you want to worry about them going bad, you need to ship them. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is some spiced almonds. So you can do any variation on this recipe that you want. The recipe that we're going to be doing today is going to be a bit smoky, and I'm going to be using almonds, but you can use any nuts that you have. You just want to make sure that you use the raw version because they're going to get toasted up in the oven. So I have a big bag of raw almonds here, but you could use pecans or cashews or walnuts, whatever you like. You can even do peanuts too, or of course you could do a mix. So this is something I usually make every year with a more sweeter version. My kids like to call it the crack because it's hard to stop eating it. But the version we're going to do today is going to have some Old Bay seasoning and some smoked paprika, but you can also do it with like a more warm spice type thing like nutmeg and cinnamon. And so the secret to this, instead of using a ton of butter or oil to make the seasoning stick to our nuts, we're actually going to be using an egg white. So I have my oven going at 350, and this is going to come together really, really quickly. You can make a big batch and then give it away in little jars or bags, or serve it as an appetizer. So all I'm going to do is crack the egg, and I actually only want the white. So I'm going to let it go in, and we're just going to make like a little batter with an egg white. I'll just get rid of that yolk and wipe off my hands here. And then to that, we're going to add a half a cup of dark brown sugar. You can do this with white granulated sugar, but the brown sugar in here is going to give a really nice, like, warm, molassesy flavor to it. So I have half a cup in here. I'm just going to dump it in. And with brown sugar, you just want to give it like a good stir into the egg white to get it broken up, because you know how it can kind of clump a little bit. So a few little clumps is okay, but you want to try to make sure you break it up as much as possible. So it's going to look like that. I hope you can see that. And then to that, we're going to add a bunch of spices. So I'm going to add some salt, some smoked paprika, some Old Bay seasoning, and some cayenne, and then also some black pepper. If you don't want them to be too spicy, you can leave out the cayenne, or you can hold back on it too. All right, so that's nice and broken up. And so to that, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of kosher salt while I drop my spoon on the floor. And what I like about this is I can control how much salt goes in there, how much sugar goes in there. So if you don't want to make these with so much sugar, you can hold back on that sugar. But a half a cup for 16 servings of nuts isn't too crazy. And just stir each time you add in one of the spices to make sure it gets nice and gooey. All right, so we've got some smoked paprika. So I'm going to add half a teaspoon of this. Or actually, no, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. And it's going to give it a really nice, beautiful red color and kind of a nice, like, smoky flavor. And then we've got Old Bay seasoning, which people usually put on seafood or crabs. And so we're just going to do a half a teaspoon of that. If you don't have it or you can't find it, you can use some celery seed, or you can just leave it out. It's not entirely essential. So about a half teaspoon of that. Give it a stir. You can see this color is now nice and like brownish red. And then we'll add some cayenne. So this calls for a half a teaspoon. That's probably all I have left in here, so I'm gonna just dump it in. And then finally, just some regular black pepper. So I have this funny pepper mill that lights up and is electric, so my mom will be laughing that I'm using this because it was a gift to me from her. So just get it in there. Alright, and so what you're going to do is just add your nuts once you've got that all nice and mixed together and nice and smooth, and just toss them into coats. So I'm going to do 4 cups of almonds. Which is about 1.5 pounds. So we'll get these out of the way. Okay, so 4 cups of almonds. 1, 2. It's gonna be almost this whole bag. I think this bag is 2 pounds. And then just with a big spoon or a spatula, just toss them so they all get nice and coated with the egg white mixture. And then what we're going to do is just spread it out on a sheet pan and bake it for about 25 minutes until it's all nice and toasty. And then we'll break up all the pieces and we can package it up really pretty. You can make your own labels, which I'll talk about in a sec. So let me get a sheet pan. So I've got a sheet pan which I put one of those silicone baking mats on. You can also use parchment paper, or you can just spray it with some nonstick spray as well. But you definitely want to get something on your sheet pan because the egg whites are going to really harden up and they will stick to something. So silicone or parchment or just good old pan. Right. You just want to spread them out nicely so that they don't have to be all separated, but you don't want any giant clumps because you want them to be able to each get toasted. You don't want them to steam up on each other. So you can see that. I've just got them in a nice even layer. And I'm just going to put them in my oven for about 25 minutes and then we'll move on to our next recipe. Okay, so we'll get this stuff out of the way and I will move on to recipe number 2. So I don't know if you've ever seen people do this before, but there's all kinds of things you can do in a mason jar to give someone a homemade gift. So you can do homemade pancake mix, you can do homemade cookie mix, you could even do a different drink mix in there, but what we're going to do is a soup mix. So you can see that I've got some nice layered up ingredients. I've got some two different kinds of lentils, I've got some garlic, some bouillon cubes, chili pepper, and so all someone would need to do to make this soup is add some water and then 1 can of light coconut milk. So you could even give them to this as like a little gift combo, and then someone wouldn't really need anything besides a pot and some heat and some water. So some of the soup mix recipes that I've seen out there require that someone have more ingredients on hand, which I think is great, but I also think that I like to give someone a complete gift, so that's why I picked this recipe, because pretty much everything is there except for the coconut milk, which I could easily give to someone. So some of the recipes have like meat in them or lots of additional items, so you know, if you're doing that, that's just something to think about. And you can see that the recipe that I got this from had this little template that has instructions. It kind of reminded me of the Community Servings logo a little bit, so I thought it was cute, but I'll talk about that in a sec. So all we're going to do to make our spice mix, or our jar soup, is take a small either mason jar or like canning jar, and since this isn't really a huge recipe, you want to go for a smaller one. And so I've got some lentils. I've got green lentils and red lentils, but if you don't want to buy both kinds, you could do all just one or the other, but I think it makes it for a really nice pretty presentation to do both. So we'll just start layering them in the jar. So it's almost like making a little bit of a sand art. So we'll do so 2/3 cup of, ooh, I'm making such a mess, of my orange lentils. And And then 2/3 cup of my green lentils. Hopefully I can aim better. Hello everyone, sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties here with my phone, but I'm back. And the good news is that the time delay allowed me to be able to start finishing up my things. So what you did miss was the finishing off of the layering of my lentils. So what I had done was put the lentils and all the spices and the bouillon cubes and then the chili pepper on top. And then I got my soup going. So if I come over here, all I did was dump everything into the pot and started boiling it. And so I've got my lentils going, the bouillon, the chili pepper, and all I did was add 4 cups of water to it. So really, if you're giving this to someone as a gift, all they would have to do is unwrap the bouillon cubes, dump it in, and add their can of coconut milk, which we'll do in a few minutes. And so what I was saying before my video cut out is that this is our final episode of Learning Kitchen Live for 2020. So I just wanted to take a minute to thank every one of you who have joined us. When the pandemic hit, we really had to switch gears. Our normal class on Thursdays was a in-person class where we were cooking and having people try things and be able to ask questions right in person. And it was really a different situation to be going live on the internet where we weren't able to interact with our audience and people couldn't taste the food. So we really appreciate every one of you who has joined us either every week or just this week. There's a ton of great recipes available now through our Facebook content. We also have it all loaded up to our YouTube page as well. So if you missed an episode or you want to rewatch one to find one of the recipes, go through our Facebook page and we can point you in the right direction. If you can't find the recipe that you wanted to make from previous episode, just send us a message through Facebook and we're happy to direct you or even send you the direct actual recipe. Anyways, so while we were in our little technical difficulties, my nuts have been cooking, so right now they should be almost done, so I'm going to pull them out. And you can see they've gotten nice and dried out, and they're starting to stick together a little bit, so what I want to do is give them a stir. And they'll still be a little bit like kind of gooey and wet. I'm probably going to give them a few more minutes. But once they start to dry, then they'll become crispier and the gooiness will go away. So I'm just going to put them back in for a couple more minutes just to finish off. And so just like I did with my soup jar, you can do this with the nuts too. So I have this, where did I put it? This cute little, where did I put it? Oh, here it is. This cute little glass box jar, which I don't have a lid for, but you could package them up like that in the jar and, put a nice little, those are the ones that didn't make it back into the oven. A nice little label that you could either just print out on your computer and glue on or put a ribbon around it and give them away as gifts, or even just put them in some cute little baggies with a ribbon or whatever. But they make a really nice gift that lasts a long time and can stand up to being mailed as well. And so what I'm going to do in addition to posting the recipes for today's episode is also put some links to some of the websites that I referenced today that have other suggestions for different soups and jars or jarred gifts, and also the templates for those labels that I made. So thank you again. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm Beth. I'm one of the dietitians at Community Servings, wishing you all a very happy holiday, and we'll see you all in 2021. Thanks and have a great day.